Hi.
Hey,
You can pull that out
uh,
from there.
that's amazing.
I'm pretty sure this is a fire hazard.
Yeah, maybe because I got
I just won't hold it directly
merged.
over it.
No, there.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I'll blow it out on your behalf. You look like you had a fun morning.
Yeah, yeah. Was a different morning.
Yeah.
Made my
Who organized
squats.
that? John.
I was John. Yeah, it was John. There's nothing in between with him. So
Yeah.
last year when I turned 30, that was like a bit of like an emotional. I don't know, like when you enter into your 30s, it's like, oh, shit, I'm getting old. So
Mm,
I didn't want to make too much fuss out of my birthday. But he then took it very
yeah.
literal, so we didn't do anything.
Okay.
So now he went like all in this year, it seems.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing like it's one of the most like, oh God, moments when people are singing happy birthday at you, and
Yeah.
then for a band to walk in is surely like that just cranks it up to, you know, 20.
Yeah, I did. And it was like, I had, I've been doing this like squat progression. And today was quite heavy. So I wasn't like 100% sure I would actually make it.
Mm.
And then as I'm like basically doing my first heavy set, they walk in. So, and I had 9 more to go. So that was interesting. But
Yeah.
I managed.
Yeah. Ah, it's good. It's
Yeah.
nice. It's always nice to have a fuss made. But
Yeah.
yeah, I do think there is something magnificently awkward about being sung happy birthday to, because I think most people anyway don't like being the center of attention, and then just kind of nothing. It's like, do I sing along? Do I clap? Do I just sit here? Like, what do I do? Yeah, it's an awkward.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very awkward.
How are you?
I'm good.
How,
I'm good.
what
Thank you for asking.
what's the new squat progression? Is just to get strong, basically, just heavier, heavier, heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. Just trying to. It's like a never-ending project, isn't it? To try to get stronger. Uh, the
Yeah,
girls I'm competing with are very strong, so you know,
I've noticed.
trying
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Um, I was reading. So Rogue is coming up. I
Yeah.
was reading an article. Um, I was reading an. I actually don't know what it was. I've never seen it before, but so it's a website. I must try and find the name of it. It was a website, like a Spanish sports blog,
Mm.
and it was like it's very well done, but it's like a list. So it's like your name, and then it's a list of like literally every competition you've ever done and how you did, and like, did the games finish in this position afterwards? She said, so it's like gleaned from other interviews and stuff that you've done. Um, but it's incredibly in depth. And I don't know, is it for like everyone, like all over the sport, or is it just people who are in or around Spain and stuff? But like,
What's it?
I
Could it
look up the name.
Annabelle? Could it be?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
incredibly in depth.
Yes. Yeah.
And I
She's
had
kind
never
of
heard of that
the.
before. And then I clicked, it was like, oh, a YouTube channel. I clicked like 150,000 subscribers or something. I was like, okay, I've just been blind
Yeah.
to underneath that rock for the last
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
Um, but I was reading on there, and she has it that last year after Rogue, you said that you felt kind of caught out with the strength stuff, and that you weren't fully prepared for that. So has that been the focus then since?
Yes. Yes and no. It's like because now the thing with Rogue is it's so early in the season. So everyone that went to the games, I had a month off. I went to Central America for 3 weeks and I did not do any training. And I
Yeah.
also had a small operation like 3 weeks ago. So I will try to focus a lot on my strength off season now, but Rogue is too soon for it
Yeah.
to have paid off yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that does.
So
What was the operation?
it was good. It was just I had some varicose veins. It's been
Oh yeah,
bothering me
yeah.
for quite a while. Yeah, for quite a while. So I just had those removed. So it's very quick. Yeah, very quick operation, very quick recovery.
Was that in
But
your
it's
legs?
still, yeah, my left leg. So
And how long ago was that?
Uh, 3 weeks.
And you're back squatting, like it's just it's just
Yeah.
once it's whatever the stitches are healed or whatever, just go ahead, do whatever.
Yeah, actually didn't get any stitches.
Okay.
They burned the main vein with the radiation, so no stitches. And then
Okay.
they kind of pulled out the smaller ones that I had around my calf. So
Mm,
that was just like an open hole basically, but it was small enough for, so I
yeah.
didn't need any stitches. But they obviously just needed to close.
Yeah. God, it really sounds delightful. They burned me with
Yeah,
radiation and then pulled stuff out of my
yeah,
leg.
yeah. It's
Um,
I quite have quite a funny, strange sensation still in my leg because they obviously touched the
nerves
nerve a
and
bit
stuff.
as well. Mm.
And was it very
But
sore beforehand, like to lead to the surgery? It must have been bad enough.
yeah, it's just been like something that's like always there, always nagging a bit. Like
A dead ache
my
kind of
calf,
thing.
yeah, my calf would like get very swollen very quickly, and uh, yeah, it just got to the point where it was annoying, and for me, it didn't even cross my mind that it might have been because of those. But then I was just talking to some doctors, and they said like, well, you got some quite bad varicose veins on your leg that
Mm,
you've got like just overload of blood basically in your calf all the time. There's no wonder you're feeling
yeah.
pumped. So yeah.
Yeah, my dad had them, has them, but
Mm,
he was like, "Oh, my legs are really itchy." Like
yeah,
all the time. And then he went to the doctor and he was like, "Oh, my leg," like, and he was like expecting, "Oh, you need to take this, like put on this ointment or whatever." And the doctor was like, "Oh yeah, that's varicose veins." But not even looking at his legs, he was like, "Oh yeah, that's
yeah,
varicose veins." It's crazy.
yeah,
Like, um, the games this year.
yeah.
So, well, semi-finals first. You won your semi-final. You're at strength and depth.
I did.
You won. So like some of my favorite moments from the season, watching you and Emma McQuaid compete together and like cheer each other on and like push each other to each other's limits, but also like help each other like do your best as well. Like, is has that side of things, is that like something that you're kind of growing more comfortable with, being around, like seeing the same people over and over again and being able to be yourself and relax a bit more around competition and stuff?
Yeah, so that's something I've worked a lot on, like coming off the back end of last year,
Hmm.
of you kind of like focusing on what I'm doing and staying in my lane, and if finishing the work and knowing that I did my best, then you know you want to win. Like everyone out on the competition level wants to be the best, but then at the same time being then able to be happy with your effort, knowing that like this I did my best, and then we go home and like we try to improve to next time. But then at the competition day, it's as long as you put your full effort out on the competition floor, you kind of just have to be happy, and then being able to be happy for the others also doing well. It just makes the competing side of things a bit more enjoyable.
Hmm.
And Emma is also very, she's very similar. Like once it's 3, 2, 1, go. Like we both want to win. There's no like, we're not friends when we're competing as such. But
Yeah.
as soon as we're done again, we can, we're happy for each other. It's good times. So yeah, no, me and Emma it was a fun battle to then.
Do you have a translator around when she's with you, like to help you understand?
No, I think I probably would have struggled a lot more before I met John. So
Yeah.
now,
Okay. Yeah.
now I don't have any issues understanding her, but I can see that people that, if you're not that comfortable speaking English, like with the strong Irish accent, it does get even harder.
Yeah, yeah. Even just the
Yeah,
colloquialisms, like
yeah,
the what would you call it? The McQuaidisms, like that she
yeah,
has.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
um, was was semifinals? Were you nervous before going to London and stuff? Because obviously it's the first of those in a while, I suppose. The first in
Mm.
person like semi-final in Europe, that kind of thing. Was that weighing on you a bit, or were you just kind of confident going in?
Both, I would say. I would say if anyone say they weren't nervous, they're probably lying because we're working so hard for this, and everything with the last chance qualifier, it's not the same that everything comes down to one day anymore. But at the
Yeah.
same time, there's a lots is like coming down to how you perform over that weekend. So obviously I was very nervous. You always kind of question yourself, like, am I good enough? Like, I know that I've worked hard and I've done everything I can do, but like, how do I stack up against the other field? The fact that we haven't had that many live competitions lately or like the last couple of years, it makes it harder to kind of know, at that point I knew, me and Gabby had each other to kind of, we could see where we were in terms of each other, but we're also such different athletes. So they would be like, I would beat her with like minutes on certain workouts, and she would beat me with minutes on other kind of workouts. It's always just like you're a bit anxious because you don't know, you don't know how you're going to stack up basically. But at the same time, and that's probably also why I actually enjoyed it. I was like confident in myself, knowing that I'd done my best, and if I didn't qualify, like the others was simply better. So you're kind of just having to accept that as well. I think.
The games then, so this is your third year,
Yes.
like in Madison.
Yeah.
And 2019 was obviously, I guess, an odd year because there was just so many people there that it would probably feels different anyway. And I guess as a debut year, like it's kind of hard to hold that in comparison to say last year or this year because it was so odd, I suppose. But like, are you finding yourself getting more comfortable in that kind of scenario? Like, is there less surprises? Is there less? I know the workouts are always different and stuff, but is there less surprises like prep wise, and are you less anxious and stuff going into it than you were say last year or the first year?
Yeah, so I kind of look at last year as like my first real year, because in 2019 I had a back injury when I went to the game, so it was kind of I just went there knowing that I wouldn't participate in the way that I would wanted to participate in. But in 2021 I did have a bit of like kind of some, I don't know if you would say like I had a bit of a shock, but it is when you are there the first time, just you kind of get just shoved around. They don't treat you. It's not that they treat you bad, but it's not like they treat you well either. You just kind of have to hang around. There's a lot of like last minute changes. So I think now going into this year, just knowing that actually the best thing you can do is to just like stay like relaxed and just go with the flow and not try to control anything, and just be aware that they might change things, and if that happens, then that's fine. You just have to readjust. It's how it is, and not get kind of caught up in it. So yeah, I do think as you've done it more times, it gets easier in some ways.
I've heard a lot of people say that it was easier just in general this year, as in that side of it, like the prep side, and that there was less unknowns maybe, or that you were kept more in the loop and more like aware of like timelines, and that you knew some of the workouts say in the afternoon rather than, or like before you went to bed, rather than waking up in the middle of the night and checking your phone or whatever, that it was a bit more structured in that kind of way. Did you notice any of that?
Yeah, a bit maybe, but it was still a lot of like, you could get there. What was that? We got the workout announced like in the evening, and then it started raining, so then they took away the rest day. So it's still like, and we were supposed to have the legless rope climbs in the workout, and they told us 20 minutes before we went out on the floor that like we just took away the legless rope climbs. So that changed the workout like completely. So I think they tried to communicate a lot better, but then at the same time there was still a lot of last minute changes basically.
How did you feel about the rope climbs being changed?
Well, obviously I would have liked to have the rope climbs in there. That would have been a lot better for me. There's a lot of others that got punished even more for that being taken away. I would say like Christy, for example, she would have, she probably would have crushed it. Haley as well, I think would have done a lot better with the legless rope climb. So yeah, it changed around the workout completely because it was a workout. Yeah.
When that happens, like you say, there's only like 20 minutes or so or whatever before you do it. Like, do you like just squash everything down and then vent after the workout, or do you like go apeshit for like 5 minutes and then be like, right, okay, it's out of my system now, I need to just do the workout?
At the moment in time, I actually didn't like. I didn't get too caught up in it because it was kind of like, okay, this sucks, but there's nothing I can do about it, and then wasting energy on like getting annoyed would just cost even more. So I just kind of adapt with it. And then once you're done with the workout, you kind of try to focus on the next workout. So I actually just, yeah, I think we all just like let it slide. And I think it's actually a thing that a lot of people are not aware of, that they just changed the workout around last minute. And I think it would have made quite a difference. Like it would have changed up the leaderboard quite a bit if they kept playing.
Like even I was talking to John at the time, and he was like, he messaged me and said like, you would want to see what's happening, just like in the background here, it's crazy. And I didn't know what was going on, and he, I said, "Oh, is it about the workout?" And he said, "Yeah, like there's a lot of people are quite pissed off about it." But like he was making the point of, I kind of thought of it, say, the immediacy of it. I thought of like, oh, Jacqueline would have done well. The rope climbs, that's obviously frustrating when it's changed like that. But then he was like, well, look at the whole spectrum of the games. Like he was like, it obviously it changes that one workout, but it also changes the fatigue for the next workout, or the, like it gives people cushions or takes away cushions or whatever. And it's like when, or even just the what do you call it? The like the whole test of the games is changed when that one aspect of that one workout is changed. And I think it's easy to get sucked up from a fan perspective to be like, oh, that's shit, but then like it actually does make quite a large difference to everything, really, like, the frustration of the rope climbs, I assume, is like totally wiped out once you're standing in the middle of the arena with sandbag up on your shoulder and
Yeah.
everybody's like collapsing and there's like fireworks going off and everything.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That must have been absolutely fucking incredible.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I tried to do like a 60 kilo, like some walking lunges with 60 kilos the other day, and to get it on my shoulders, and like, that is heavy to get 60 kilo sandbag on my shoulders. And I did like 108 or something, 110 kilos. Like, yeah, that was really cool.
Had you in your head when you were like, were you able to mess around with sandbags behind, like in the warm up area and stuff?
Yeah, so they had a lot of sandbags lined up for us. I did not go heavier than the opening weight. I did 150, 160, and then I stopped. I was like, there's no point. It was too short of a time domain to really practice a new technique. I tried to play around with the strongman technique that we got showed in the back. By I always forget his name. I feel very bad. But an American strongman came and showed us like a good technique.
Okay.
And I did try to play around with that for a bit, but I just said to John very quickly, like this, I'm just gonna have to do it my way and just try to get it up. I cannot try to play with some new technique. We can go home and maybe try to work on this so we kind of get it down. But for now, this is just gonna mess it up even more. So yeah. And it worked.
And did CrossFit did Adrian bring in someone to show you, or did he just happen to be not? Okay, yeah.
No, he brought in someone to show us, but it's this like massive strongman guy, and then he had like the 200-pound sandbag. He made it super easy. So, but yeah, he did show us the technique that the strongman guys would use. But yeah, like I said, we just didn't have the time for me to practice like a new skill.
And is there like when you walked out then, and obviously it's intense because you're kind of going like one after the other and stuff, and it's just an intense like scenario. Are you, when you're waiting, are you like, oh, I'm not getting this one now, or like are you, like what's going through your head when you're waiting for your turn?
So if we go back like a bit further, so when we were lining up in the back, she goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And she pointed me as number 8 and say like, okay, this is the order you're gonna lift in. So I was like, sweet, I'm last. Like I will see how people do, like what kind of technique works, what doesn't work. And then 2 minutes passes, and then it's like, oh no, it's the opposite way around. And like I needed to like shuffle around. Like so 8 was first. So it turns out that I was first instead of last. Which in retrospect I actually think was good, because I did not see anyone fail the sandbag before I tried it. So it was just me and the sandbag, and it was like, okay, let's see what we can do. I didn't have in my head if this was supposed to be heavy or not. I think, because I do think in one of the rounds, there was something like 12 people that went out on like the 220 or 230. Like it was a lot of people that missed. And at some point, I do think it also gets like it's a bit mental. Like for me, seeing Gabby, for example, miss, who's supposed to be, well, it's not supposed to be. She is a lot stronger than me, and like Tia missed. So seeing those names, then it would kind of be, it's like, okay, you're supposed to not make this. This is okay to not make.
Yeah.
Whilst I didn't have that mindset going into it, it was just like, okay, it's you and me, see what we can do. I was scared shitless from the first bag. I wasn't sure I was going to get the first one. I just remember saying, like, it was me and Amanda. I was like, and I was just thinking to myself, like, I don't want to be the first one to fail. And I tried to at least be like a top 20. Like that would be good if you're, at least top, like on the top 20 of the workout instead of like the bottom 20. So that was kind of like my goal. And then all of a sudden I realized I was like, oh, I'm top 10 and then top 6. And then it was just me and Danny left. It was, it's crazy.
I think because I think everybody has had that experience at least once, where you're like, maybe you're doing cleans or something, and you have that like the first little just when you take the weight of the bar off the ground, and I know I've had it where it goes through my head like, uh-oh, like where you feel the weight at the very start, you're like, this is going fucking nowhere. At best, this is a deadlift, and then I'm just stopping. When you like get your hands underneath, like when you start like wiggling and try and get your hands underneath, are you just trying to block out all that kind of, because it's so easy for that to creep in, to be like, if you can't get your fingers on it, you're not fucking getting it up to your hip, like.
I think if you looked at the footage and if you looked at the live, like you can see me laughing quite a bit. And I would like, because it was just like how am I supposed to get this big thing filled with sand up on my shoulders? And you can see like I'm kind of wiggling my knees under because I can't even like do the deadlift with it properly because it's too big to get up on my knees. So I have some moments like actually during, because it took me like, what did it take me, like 30-40 seconds each of the lifts, where I'm kind of mid-lift like laughing and like this must look very like funny, me trying to lift this thing that's even bigger than me, and then also like kind of with myself like, how am I supposed to get this to my shoulder? Like this is very heavy. But then I snap back again at like, okay, just see what you can do.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was like, one of the top moments from the games. Is just remarkable. I remember hearing you talk before about that ruck run in 2019 as being like the hardest. You kind of hold that up as one of the worst workout experiences or hardest workout experience you've had. Obviously you're injured, like or niggling it, holding it, or carrying an injury at the time. Anything this year like stack up against that, like Capital or any of those kind of hold up as like, God, that was actually really hard?
No. So the thing with the workout from 2019 is it was just so frustrating because I couldn't do what I knew that I normally would be capable of doing.
Yeah.
Because I'm not the best runner in the CrossFit world, but I would say I'm decent. So with that workout normally, like, and they had cuts, I would have done like quite okay. So in 2019 it was very frustrated not being able to do what I normally would be able to do. I think this year I didn't have any I would say the handstand push-up workout was quite frustrating because just kind of with the judging and the standard that,
did you see Noah Olsen's video last week?
Yeah, I did. I reposted it as well because it was quite funny and sadly also quite accurate.
Funny and sad because it's true.
Yeah, no, exactly. So
you went on holidays afterwards then?
Yeah.
How was that?
That was epic. Amazing. Yeah, it was really nice. It was just nice to relax.
Yeah, and just like, I guess just not think. It's like, it's just like, I suppose when you have a job and then like people kind of forget that it's a job, that like training and competing and stuff is a job, and that, because I suppose for most people it's their recreation, so they go for an hour or maybe like 2 hours a day or whatever, and it's their time to switch off and stuff. But it's easy to forget that like for an athlete, especially an athlete and a coach who are in a relationship together, it's both of your jobs. And like you when you were on the last time, you talked about how, I guess, kind of all consuming it can be because you have all these different roles. Like you're the athlete, you're working with the program, you have all these obligations and stuff. So I suppose just to go to somewhere where nobody knows who you are, and then there's no obligation on you to be like, oh God, I better go and train, or I bet you're able to just veg or just be a slug for like a week or whatever.
Yeah.
When you come back then from there, obviously you had surgery and stuff. Is it hard to pick yourself up? Like, is it hard to get going again?
So it's like a yes and a no. Because and this is why I think it's so good to take some proper time off as well, because you get motivated to get back into your routine, and you kind of get to realize that I just make sure that like when I have the time off, I do all the things that I kind of want to do when I'm in the training routine normally, so that I kind of get like an overload on the things, so that when I come back home, I actually want to go back into the routine.
Yeah.
But the challenging thing is that I'm obviously not in the shape that I was before I left. So that part of like getting back into like getting the conditioning, getting the strength up, like just having the body move smooth again, like that part can be like frustrating.
Yeah.
Because you kind of feel like you're starting from scratch, and obviously you're not starting from scratch, but you're just used to like I'm used to a certain level of fitness, and then what would normally be like RP 6 row, for example, is like almost on RP 10. So I'd go out way too hot and I crash, and I'm not too, because I normally know how to pace myself very well, but then the coming back, it's like you kind of go out like I did just before the games, and then like you realize like, oh no, I'm not in the shape that I was. I need to like slow down. I need to go a bit softer. So that is a challenge, I would say.
Yeah, it sounds like when you come back, you're basically me for a week, where you just go out too hot, you crash and burn, you're like, fuck, what's wrong with me? Yeah. Except you then go and continue to put in effort and work and improve, whereas I just stay in that one little zone at the start.
Well, that's the hope at least.
Yeah. I noticed last week, you put up a thing last week where you got messages. I think it was messages anyway. And just when you were talking there about coming back and starting from a different place, obviously, like as sports go, CrossFit is kind of like it's intense, like body image wise and stuff, where like there's a lot of pressure on athletes, specifically female athletes, because like just the way society is, unfortunately, at the minute anyway, where like women just aesthetically are viewed, or it's I don't know, it's kind of more, it's deemed more okay to comment on a woman's physique than it is a man's physique, or it's just more likely to happen, I guess. So then you have this kind of duality of it, where you're expected to be in great shape because you're competing and you're in a physical sport, and you should have like abs, and you should have like muscles, and you should be like slim and everything else. And then you have this other side of it where like there's a pressure to be a female and to be like the historically classic female things of like delicate and slim and all those kind of things. And then you kind of forget that that's happening, I suppose. And I remember talking to Lucy Campbell, and she was saying how when she was younger, she used to swim, or she used to do gymnastics, and she started feeling self-conscious in the clothes and stuff, and just kind of being like, just feeling like she's a bit on display. So then she did swimming, and I kind of said like, that's hardly any better than gymnastics. She was like, yeah, it was way worse. But then CrossFit is kind of similar, where like you're in these like, there's a spotlight on you, and you're competing, and it's a physical sport, and you're being judged for like, oh, her legs are big, her legs are small, or his shoulders are like big, so he should do well at this workout, or he's short, so he should do this, or she's tall, so she should do this. Is that something you ever have to wrestle with, apart from, I know you got like fucking stupid messages last week, whatever, even biologically they didn't make sense. Like one of them, he said, you look like a man without a penis, and I was like, that's a woman. I was like, I don't understand. Like, what? Like, even just look at the grammar of what you're saying; it didn't make sense. But is it like, say, internally, is that something that you ever think about? Like, say, even when you're coming back from time off, are you like, oh God, I don't look as good as I want to look, or is it pure performance that you focus on?
Yeah. So I would, it's like I focus on performance, and I don't necessarily care how my body looks as such, I would say. I think we kind of all go through through stages. So before I found CrossFit, I would say like, you know, I also was young and insecure, and you know, was a bit more like, you know, how do people think I look, and cared a bit more what the boys would say. But for me, finding CrossFit, because I did have a short stop in the fitness world as well, where everything was based on how you look. And actually, you know, the irony is like when people are at the stage, they're the most unfit they've ever been. You know, like people are passing out behind the stage, like you're dehydrated, you're so unfit. But then, you know, you get rated because you're like lean and ripped and all of this. So for me, then going from the fitness kind of community into the CrossFit community, it was just such a relief, because people didn't care how I looked. It was all about just how you performed. And it was like, I remember people would say like, oh, you need to stop doing squats, and you can't do heavy deadlifts because like your waist get too big. And like, that's the part that I enjoyed with like, you know, trying to get stronger. And, you know, like I always enjoy the fitness perspective of the training, to try to get fitter, to try to like be able to run quicker, to be able to lift heavy weights. So then I think that I don't think, I know that when I then found CrossFit, I'd already gone through that, and I was kind of done with, I think I probably worked through a lot of those insecurities as well. So I actually found it very fun. Like when I started competing, I then did find myself like, oh, she looks fit, you know, she's strong, like look at this arm, she's gonna crush me. Like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm so small compared to these girls. But then, you know, you start to work at it, and I will beat them like a lot, like most of the time. So and I just remember it was quite fun, like when you stand on the podium, and then like you're like this tiny person that don't actually look that big next to these like massive girls who've been doing this for or just have a lot more muscle and do look fitter than you in some ways, because you know they are leaner, they do have bigger arms. So now for me, it's not about the body image. I'm just very proud of everything that my body can do, and like, you know, the fact that we've kind of proven people wrong. That like, you know, you can be strong, but then also be able to lift, like you can lift heavy, but then also have good conditioning. And the fact that CrossFit does, you know, we do everything, and we can kind of throw weightlifting into. I'm not saying we would exceed at every sport, but we have a lot better basis of doing better than someone who just does like bodybuilding, or someone who just does running, for example. So for me, that I really like. I just love the fact that I'm able to do so many different things. You know, I can walk my hands, I can lift heavy, I can run, we swim. So there's a long answer to your question, but I don't take those comments personal. But I do still find it's still a big issue, because I am now one of the older ones, and I do realize there's a lot of young females like in the sport as well that might take these comments, and that are very insecure about the bodies. Like, you know, you look at the games, a lot of I'm sorry, people are beeping in the background. But you look at a lot of the girls that they would look up to, like, you know, they have big shoulders, like you can see the abs, they look super fit, and then people, you know, that's the image that a lot of the girls then kind of like striving for. And I also don't think it's necessarily healthy to be as lean as a lot of like the top females are. Like, we're all very different, so just, you know, you need to find what works for you. So like, I know that personally, if I want to perform, I cannot be super lean, but others, they still perform very well whilst being super lean. So yeah.
Because it's a hard one as well, where I remember a few weeks ago it kind of blew up as a bit of a talking point, or a topic of conversation, where there's kind of this thing of like that you shouldn't be allowed to comment, or that people shouldn't be allowed to comment on people's say physical appearance and stuff. And then it's kind of like, well, in a sport like CrossFit, it kind of does make sense. You know, like there are, obviously, if you're saying like, oh, she's ugly, or she's pretty, or he's handsome, or his jawline is shit, or whatever, that's different. Like, because it's not impacting on the sport. But if it's like, she's a taller athlete, ergo this should suit her, or she's a shorter, ergo this should, or like, you know, really strong legs, or, you know, like whatever. I think that kind of side of it, that's like color commentary. That's like, it makes sense. It's like if someone, I don't know, if you're watching fucking rugby and you're like, well, look at their pack is way heavier than their pack. It's not an insult. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of different when it's purely sport based. It kind of makes sense. But again, I suppose if it turns into just, you know, like
criticism.
the type of shit you see on live commentary on YouTube, you know, the
Yeah.
comments on YouTube and that kind of stuff, then yeah, I guess it's very different. When I spoke to John last week,
Mm.
we started talking about coaching, and we started talking about all the changes that have happened in the last like 6 months or so, where like a lot of people are moving around all different camps and stuff. And we were kind of discussing whether or not it's like, is it happening a lot, or is this the same amount it always happens? It's just highlighted, or it's more visible, or it's, you know, like it's more noticeable or whatever. Have you been surprised as an athlete? Have you been surprised with how many people are moving camps, or how many people are like making changes? Like, because I know there's kind of two schools of thought. Like, some people, I spoke to Travis Mayer the other day, and he was kind of saying how it's very easy to blame your coach. And it's very easy to say like, if you fucked up and you didn't, like, I didn't do this because blah, blah, blah. Whereas he's like, 9 times out of 10, it's like, oh, actually, I fucked up because I didn't do what you told me to do, or I didn't speak out, or I didn't like share my concerns or something. Have you been surprised at all the changes?
Like yes and no, but I think I do think there is a bit of like, I don't know, like there's a lot of and I feel like there's always kind of been like people stay, but people are very different. But there's certain people do jump around a lot, like, you know, they change coaches. I don't think it's I don't know. It seems more normal maybe in CrossFit than the other sports, but then you do also have some that have stayed with the same, you know, stayed true to the same coach for many years. But I do think, like you say, it's sometimes it's easier to blame the coach than to kind of look at yourself. I also think just with the nature of the sport, like CrossFit, you can have improved a lot as an athlete, but then you get very different workouts at the games, so that doesn't necessarily then, you know, you don't see that result in like a higher ranking because just the workouts are very different, and obviously that can be frustrating. And to be fair, you know, if people feel like they need change and they want to try something new, then, you know, go for it as well. You need to kind of find, you know, what works for you, and what makes you happy.
Have you ever been approached by another training house? Like, have you ever gotten an email or a message or
Yeah,
anything
I have.
with offer of like pay?
Yeah. Sorry.
Like, because I
I'm
didn't
I'm
know.
not going to say any names.
No,
But,
I wouldn't expect. I wouldn't expect you
no,
to.
but it was
I'll
quite
start
funny
guessing, and you just give me a thumbs up when I say it. No, I'm joking.
I know. No, but so the things like this program had then tried to reach out to a lot of the other program athletes as well, and it got to the point where John got quite frustrated. So he emailed, he sent a message like, you know, hey, this isn't cool. Like, you know, the way they're doing it, and then they apologize and like, I'm sorry, we're not going to do it anymore. And then it goes like 1 week, 2 weeks, and then they reach out to me, and I was
No!
like, well.
Oh my god!
So it was like, well, I think if you've not done your research very well, if you think
Oh,
that
like
like I would change,
not a fucking jot of research was done there.
yeah,
It was like,
no,
oh my god! Like that
so
is, yeah,
that was quite
wow.
funny, but yeah.
Yeah, because it's kind of shady. I don't know. Maybe it's not shady. Maybe I'm just naive. I don't know. But I kind of didn't realize that was the thing, that people were paid. That some people were paid, or some training houses pay. And I kind of I don't know. It's just like, wow. Like, I did not know that happened. And then I was kind of like, maybe I'm stupid for not knowing. Like, maybe it's obvious that it would
That's just
happen. Like, why wouldn't
realizing,
it?
yeah. I
Um,
think some of the Americans as well now, they're just, you know, gotten very big and they have the resources to do it.
yeah. Well, I mean, if you're charging, I don't know, €50 a month for programming, and you have an athlete who brings in, just because they're there and because they're successful, brings in like 20 people a month. I mean, give the athlete half of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it stays consistent or whatever. But yeah, and it's hard, like, because as an athlete, then I suppose you're looking for ways to make money, and you're looking for ways to make your life easier and remove stress and stuff of like worrying about paying your rent, or, you know, needing to coach class or something. So it can be hard, I guess, if someone says, obviously not that instance. That instance, it was pretty easy to say no. But like, it can be hard if someone approaches and says, hey, you're training like 4 hours a day. Do you want to train 4 hours a day with us instead? And we'll pay you 20 grand, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard, like, to, I think it's going to start happening more. I think it's going to start becoming an expectation, as the sport
It might
grows
do.
more.
I know that John finds it well, it's like an interesting concept because, like, obviously as a coach, you also do put in a lot of time and effort into helping the athlete. But then the athlete is also of market value for you because, like, you would get more subscribers. It's an interesting dilemma of, like, where do you put the line, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, even say one or two of the people that I have heard are paid. My immediate instinct was, oh, now it makes sense why they're there. Like, do you know what I mean? It
Yeah,
made like it
yeah.
kind of brings into question motives of like, are you with that training house because you think they're really good, or because they're like paying your rent, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this is it. This is going to be your 10th open. Coming up, I
And
make it
you
anyway.
really? You know
Yeah,
this? I did not know this.
I think. Well, I counted 9.
Okay.
You've put in 9 scores.
Yeah, I think I did it in 2014. I didn't really do CrossFit back then. Remember,
Yeah.
I just done CrossFit for like a month or something,
Okay.
and they snapped. They did manage to get me to do. So you might be right. It might be my 10th open. Wow.
Yeah. Obviously, a lot has changed.
Yeah.
Just say personally for you, like you're now living in Mallorca. You're with the program. You've been to the games, all that kind of stuff. Like, have you noticed a change? Like, do you notice a change year on year to your attitude towards training and towards competing and towards that kind of stuff, or does it just kind of evolve as you go more so?
I think so. Well, yes. Like, I think ironically, like, the more kind of opportunities that comes with it, and the more you've been in the sport, the more maybe you look at it as a job.
Yeah.
Because, like, in the beginning, this was only something I did for, like, for fun. I did not start CrossFit thinking that, like, this was going to be my career and I was going to,
Yeah.
like, go anywhere with it. But then, all of a sudden you're getting sponsors, you're starting to make money. And then all of a sudden it's, this is my job. It's been like that transition of, like, it's just being a hobby to, like, oh no, it's not necessarily just a hobby anymore. It's kind of also my job. So in that way, it's like it's different, but then I'm still kind of training the same. And I think as you get more into it, you also probably get better at, like, pushing yourself, like, what kind of works, what doesn't work, what to tell yourself, how to kind of dig really deep when you need to dig deep. So that's also something that kind of you need to train.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you keep like a notebook for your training, or how do you log your training?
So I actually have some folders because I would, like, print out my programming and then, like, write in them. So I have a folder for each year. But now recently we moved over to True Coach instead. So now everything is on, like, in the app. But I can look through my folders and see what I've done previously.
As in like a big like ring binder, like click
Yeah.
close. Wow,
Yeah.
okay. So you've got like 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
Wow, okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. Wow, that's old school.
Yeah. I don't know if I still have it at my old gym, but, like, the gym I train at in Norway, they might have thrown them away now. But they have the
Oh, I'm sure they're in
from
like
back.
the
Yeah.
Oslo Museum of Fitness or something at this stage.
Yeah, in such, but it is. But yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Your last year you finished 17th and this year you finished 16th. Is it as simple as saying 13th next year is successful? Is it that simple? Is it really complicated to try and think that kind of way?
No, I think I kind of like my mentality when I train. Like, I do want to push for that top 10, and I think it's important to have. You need to have, like, you need to reach. You need to try to reach highs. Like, obviously, I kind of look at the girls and I'm like this. Why should I not be able to do
Yeah.
do the same? But then also being very aware that, like, we all kind of have that mindset, and someone has to take each spot. So, like, as a cliche as it might sound, like, my focus is to go in and kind of, like, put effort into each session and try to have as many good sessions as possible. And that doesn't mean that every session is a great session, because, like, we all have good and bad days. But then just on also those bad days, like, okay, so what, kind of change the focus a bit around those bad days where you can't hit maybe, like, the same intensity as normal, but then change around so you can focus a bit more on. But trying to bring some values, like something that makes me a bit better every day. And then at the games, like, or semifinals, it's just about, like, doing my best and staying true to kind of my potential and what I can do. And then, the hope is that will put me at top 10. But if it doesn't, at the same time, it's like, okay, then you go back to work and see how it goes. And then even if, like we spoke about, there's so many things out of my control. They might come with like completely, like next year maybe they only have heavy workouts. You might have a lot of bad judging that can really mess with you. So like you get a score that doesn't necessarily represent where you should have been. There's so many things out of your control as well. So I think if your only focus is on like the number that's like next to your name at the end of the weekend, it's kind of like a bit of like a dangerous game, and the chances are very, like you can get very disappointed, even when you did your best and you worked hard and you're the fittest you ever been. So it's a bit of like finding that balance.
You mentioned earlier on how like it kind of has the longer you're in it and the more sponsors you get, or like the more you compete and stuff, it can start to feel more like a job. Like obviously the good thing with sponsors, I know you work with GoWad and a few others, and like the good thing with sponsors is that they relieve stress, as in like you don't need to worry as much anyway about finances and stuff, and supporting yourself and that kind of stuff. But does it add pressure as well, where you're like, oh shit, now I need to like do well, or even just like, oh, I need to make a post about such and such a thing, or those kind of obligations?
Yeah, it's obviously a bit like you obviously need to hold your end of the deal. So like there's certain things that you need to provide back. That being said, like I've only signed with brands that I believe in and that I use on like a daily basis, which also makes my job a lot easier. I would really struggle to promote something that I didn't like believe in myself. I would find that very fake. But like with the GoWord, for example, like I actually do use that every day. And they're also really nice guys. Like and just the story behind like how they created the app and the brand is like so that's, I would say that comes very naturally. It's a very easy like collaboration. So I do make sure that when I sign with brands, it's brands that I believe in, and that like the terms is also like good for me. So I know that I'll be able to meet them without like too much of a stress. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah. Long-term future then. So obviously you wanna go to the games again, and you want to, give your best and all that other stuff that we've talked about, your personal goals and stuff. But like, say, I know this is probably a shitty question to ask someone on their birthday, because like people tend to feel old on their birthday.
I'm old.
But like, when you start thinking beyond, say, this season, or even beyond the next couple of seasons, like, do you envisage yourself taking up like a larger role with the program? Do you envisage yourself coaching or masters or team, or just do you just like step away altogether, or have you put any thought into that kind of thing?
I have not put too much thought into it, to be honest. I'm like focusing on. I actually was more stressed about this like 2 years back. Like, what am I going to do after CrossFit?
That was
how
probably
long
just
will I
with
do this?
30 looming. You were like,
Yeah.
it was like midlife crisis type thing.
Yeah. I don't think that I want to be a coach. Also, just because like I'm living so close on someone who's a coach, it's like a very. It can be very rewarding, but then also working with elite athletes is not necessarily. It can also be very hard. Like we're extremely demanding, not necessarily the most appreciative. And like the better the athlete gets, the more the athlete kind of expects to get in return in some ways as well. Which is understandable, but I don't know. I don't think I want to get into that personally myself. So I would take it a bit as it comes. Like John needs help with the programs. It's kind of good. It's a reassurance for me knowing that like there will be work for me to do. So there's always roles and parts within the program that I would be able to kind of step into if needed. But I'm also like just my personality. I do need something that I'm kind of like driven by. So I wouldn't be surprised if I go like a completely different direction as well. We'll see. I used to work as a teacher before this, and then all of a sudden it's CrossFit. So, yeah, it's also quite privileged that I've actually done different things in my life. So I know that I know how to readjust, and it's like if I want to, like I can do something. I can be good in a different kind of arena than just CrossFit as well. Like I know how to readjust and kind of
What kind of
that makes
teaching did
sense.
you do
Maths and science.
for like secondary school?
High school.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I do, and also I have like a bachelor, like as an engineer. So I got an engineer degree. Then took
Jesus.
an extra
Okay.
year. Yeah. So I do kind of have that I could go. I didn't finish my master's degree, so I could I could go back and finish the master's, and that would be like in industrial economy. We'll see. I could also see myself just opening up like a animal shelter. I think that's what would like make me the happiest, probably. Probably would not make a lot
None
of
of this
money.
stuff lines up with anything else.
No.
It's like I taught maths and science, but I did engineering and economic and like animal shit. Like
Then I
none of it.
became, yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah, I admire that
Uh,
though. I admire that. There's no such thing as a comfort zone. It's great.
yeah.
Um,
No, we'll see.
yeah, an animal shelter. There's a lot of cats in Mallorca, isn't there?
Yeah, we have a lot of cats at the farm.
There you go, straight away.
Yeah.
Easy.
So,
And you could do your program work remotely then, surrounded by
I could.
cats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
You
like
could do-
dogs more than dogs and horses would be even better.
Yeah, I'm
To
glad
be
you said that.
honest.
To be honest, I
Yeah.
fucking hate cats, so I'm glad you said that. I was trying to sound
Yeah.
enthusiastic about the cats. I couldn't even fucking fake it. I was just like, no, just leave them where they are and get some dogs.
Yeah.
So you have Rogue coming up now in a couple of weeks. You're probably going to America. What, like next week? Are you end of next week?
20th. Thursday
Okay.
the 20th. So like a week and a half.
Yeah. And after that, then Dubai, Wadapalooza, any of those?
So I wanted to do Dubai, and I did the first workout before the operation, and then released the others after.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was just too much jumping for me to be able to do the 2 last qualifiers, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
I would have, if it was like a week later or like 2 weeks later, it would have been fine. But it was just too close to the operation, so I had to choose not to do it. But I do think I will go to Wadapalooza.
Okay.
So yeah, off season is Rogue, and then Wadapalooza, then I don't have anything else planned. So.
And are you going to do both at Wadapalooza or just one?
It's to be decided. I haven't decided yet. We'll see.
Okay.
See what happens. But they open it up now, so you can do the individual and you can go team if you want to.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like it's an interesting concept because I think I don't know who I think it was Travis again was saying like I mean it's 10 workouts. Like he was like it's nothing crazy. Like it's not
No.
But yeah, I think he's doing it with Noah and Chandler, and I was kind of asking him like, oh, would you do? And he was like, they have both like forcefully told me no. Like he said he brought it up kind of casually. They were like, absolutely not. So yeah, it would be. I suppose it's at that time of the season, it's kind of hard to be like, oh yeah, I'll do both. Because it's like it will be quite demanding because you'll be up against people who aren't doing both.
Doing it,
yeah. But I guess the individual is first, though, isn't it? So that'll make things.
It's
a bit
individual
easier,
first and then team afterwards. So
okay. Okay. But you're all right. Okay.
yeah, I know. Yeah, like it will be announced.
Yeah,
soon enough.
That's fine. I'm not going to push. Well, look, thanks. Thank you for coming on. It's great to catch up with you. Happy birthday. I hope you have a great day,
Thanks
a great
so
weekend. And yeah, see if like a nice in to repay you for sitting through the band, you could ask John to get a dog for the farm, or 3 or 6.
We have 2 dogs there as well.
Okay, what are they?
It's a lab. One is a lab. He's only he's like 10 months old now, so he's very cute. And then it's like a Mallorquin Pastid, which looks also kind of like a lab, but it's not a lab. It's a bit different. But yeah,
sounds like a made-up name. I have to be honest.
Mallorquin Pastid. Yeah.
Sounds like you're chewing butter or something, and you're just trying to speak.
Yeah, no, but it's a black and a white, and they're very nice.
And any horses?
No, unfortunately not.
I'd say it's a lot of expense though, keeping a horse, surely, isn't it?
It is, and time and expense. That's one thing. Like when I'm done with CrossFit, I will probably look at getting a horse. I did start horse riding actually again when I 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I stopped it last season because it was kind of like, okay, should I go swimming on Thursday or should I go horse riding? And then it was kind of like, the easy. It's a very obvious.
It's
choice.
Unlikely that horse riding is going to come up in Madison. Although if the game moves, if it moves to somewhere like Yellowstone or something, and then one of the,
Yeah,
You never know.
no, it's the risk of injury. Unfortunately, I would love if they put in there, because that would be like. There's probably
Yeah.
other people that have been horse riding before as well, but it would have been probably like an easy top 5 finish at least. You know, you can't guarantee that, but just the
Yeah.
risk of injury, there's like no way that would ever happen.
Yeah. Well, look. Best of luck with your off-season plans and with Rogue and Waterploos and everything else. And yeah, happy
Thank you
birthday.
so
Enjoy
much.
yourself.
Thank you.